Salam and peace. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, covering the whole United States of America, east to west, north to south, and Canada and Mexico. You can also watch us on Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku. And if you are among the YouTubers, you can go on YouTube, look for us, and remember to subscribe. You can also download our app or go and visit on the website. So America is terrorized on January 6th. And since then, more people want to know who are the Oath Keepers and Three Percenters. They were involved, allegedly, I have no evidence personally, in the media, and media I can trust most of the time, but not on each and every item, are saying that they were heavily involved in terrorizing the nation on January 6th. 6 people died as a result of that. So who are the Oath Keeper? When you Google, their website comes up, and we try to invite them to hear from them directly, because I think in America today, more than ever, it is important that we hear each other. We don't have to agree, but we need to listen to each other. So we understand listening is a connection. Listening develops relationships. We do not need to continuously break America into multiple divisions. We need to build bridges of understanding, and a piece of understanding is listening. Although they are defined as militias, but nobody has declared them illegal. They're declared to be hate mongers, but they are not illegal. So Southern Poverty Law Center, but Oath Keepers did not respond to us. We wanted to talk to them and give you opportunity to hear them directly. So Southern Poverty Law Centers, which keeps an eye on the hate groups, they say the Oath Keeper, which claims tens of thousands of present and former law enforcement officials and military veterans as members, is one of the largest radical anti-government groups in the United States today. President Trump was blamed for the January 6th incitement of terrorism and was impeached second time. Now his trial has begun in the Senate. Not everybody is convinced of it. Senator Marco Rubio, who had very abusive language for him during the presidential primary, says this trial is, quote unquote, stupid. More than 150 people who invaded the Capitol Hill has been detained on multiple different charges. Some charges are stronger than the other. But one of the Oath Keeper charge in the Capitol riot, the federal government says in the lawsuit, was preparing for literal war. Preparing for literal war, not the verbose. And also stated during the detention hearing about one of the Oath Keeper named Donovan Crowell. The plan was never for peaceful protest, quote unquote. And the Virginia prosecutor goes on saying that Donovan Crowell, who was a former US Marine, quote unquote, the Oath Keepers arrived in DC prepared for violence. While inside the building, other Oath Keepers allegedly received a Facebook message, that's also by the prosecutor, stating that, quote unquote, all members, that is member of the Congress, all members are in the tunnels under the Capitol. Seal them in, turn on gas, unquote. We wanted to hear, as I told you, directly from Oath Keepers, but nobody responded. In the meantime, a friend referred to a person who used to be Oath Keeper and is a veteran himself. So we thought, let's talk to him. Instead of just scholars who study books and website and social media, we need to hear directly with them. And that is Bobby Rodrigo. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Bobby.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor.
Thank you for your time. Bobby Rodrigo is a veteran, former Oath Keeper, a musician, podcaster, and a member of the whole array of civil society organizations. Right now, he's traveling again for some helping people out. So tell me this about in 2015 in an article, 6 years ago, that is, you criticized Southern Poverty Law Center website saying that it is completely inaccurate. Let us be clear, the oath keepers do not break the law. Do you still have that opinion?
No, I do not. I do not. One of the reasons why I'm a former oath keeper, they essentially, the charter, they're violating the charter. They have been for a long time. I actually joined I was looking it up, and I actually officially joined in 2014. Thus, the article that you mentioned, I do write a lot, not as much lately, but I do write a lot, and they have changed immensely, and it has been a progression, particularly at the end of the presidential term of Barack Obama, and then the start of the presidential term of Donald Trump, and the rhetoric that was involved in that election cycle, which, considering the rhetoric that we've heard in the last 4 years, a lot of that's forgotten. But the rhetoric that was going on during the election cycle, that particularly from the GOP primaries, which you commented on with the Senator Rubio comment, it's changed. A lot of things change, and I had to walk away.
So 2016 you joined and you wrote that article in 2015. When did you leave?
No, 2014 I joined. I officially was no longer a member in 2017. I have my.
When you say officially, do they have a members list or something?
Well, here's my membership card for in case anybody doubts the validity of me being a former oath keeper. There it is, right there. So yeah, they went. You go through a process. The reason that I joined was constitutional. Literally, it was literally constitutional. What the Muslim community particularly can appreciate is I have been working diligently against the indefinite detention provision of the National Defense Authorization Act.
Wow, not many people actually know about that. I remember
very true.
Council on Foreign Relations meeting, there were a lot of lawyers. There were about 30 people there, most of them lawyers. Some of them were military lawyers. And when I mentioned that, everybody denied that there is no provision of indefinite detention, which is there, which Obama did sign into law saying that we will not. So you are one of the rare person I'm hearing that from.
Yeah, so that was my journey. So I was the largest organization in the country that fights that particular issue as a single issue thing is called the People Against the NDAA, pandaunite.org. It's an organization started by a wonderful young man named Daniel Johnson, who is actually one of the reasons why I know the gentleman who introduced me to you and your organization. And he actually created the organization from his dorm room in Bowling Green, Ohio. And I met him on a conference call relative to another organization. And then we had him on my radio network, actually one of the other hosts initially. And as soon as I heard what he was doing, I immediately joined the fight. And, for anybody who doesn't think that exists, are just not paying attention. The indefinite detention provision, for example, and mind you, this is not a liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat thing. As most constitutional issues are, it's all about government force. And in 2011, President Obama signed a law that I believe is one of the most egregious laws ever created in this country. And so we sued. We were part of the coalition that sued the government. Hedges versus Obama. Chris Hedges was the leading plaintiff. And the decision that was rendered in New York was one of the best constitutional decisions I've ever read in my life. And we won the case. And the law was permanently enjoined. And the Obama administration appealed the decision to the Second Circuit. And as the appellate courts tend to do, they turned it over because of lack of standing. So essentially, they wanted all of the plaintiffs that were listed, they said didn't have standing because they weren't in fact indefinitely detained, denied a lawyer, denied a judge, denied access, denied charges. So, which is ludicrous. And then it went to the Supreme Court and they did the same thing. So nobody ever addressed the merits of the decision because they said that there was no standing. So that's kind of how they kicked it down the road. And of course, it's renewed every single year. And the original vote in the Senate, for example, was 93-7, which is why I mentioned the partisan aspect of this. So I've always been I've always been about the Constitution. I've always been about liberty. I'm a liberty-minded person. And, our constitutional protections are important, of course. And ever since 9/11 and the Patriot Act and the expansion of drone warfare and things like that, which I have been fighting since that started as well, my journey to the Oath Keepers was predicated on those mindsets. And their charter was, it's interesting, when you mentioned the Southern Poverty Law Center, I have issues with them on many things. They're a marvelous organization, particularly when they fight for children. It's amazing how well they fight for children in court. But they are wrong a lot about their perceptions about things. And at the time, the Oath Keepers they were not an anti-government. Then actually, they're less an anti-government now than they were. But they were an organization that fought against unconstitutional behavior of the government. And when they changed their behavior, particularly from the top, I mean, Stuart Rhodes is responsible for all these changes, without a doubt. He's the founder, and he's totally the one responsible for these changes. But at the time, and as my article talks about, that the one you mentioned, they were doing the right thing. And what's interesting about like that particular example is they were protecting private property from the government, unconstitutional behavior. And the people that had asked them to do that actually won the entire case. That was the reason that they were there. So they were actually right the entire time. And if the government wouldn't have been stopped from doing what they were doing at the time, they would have had to backtrack and try and get their property back, their mine back, if they didn't do that. So it's an amazing shift to what they did. And they started doing it. Actually, the first thing I noticed when they changed was when the United States Supreme Court decided that it was constitutional to be married same-sex marriage. And there was, if your followers, your listeners, your audience may remember that there was a clerk in Kentucky that refused to issue marriage licenses for same-sex marriage. Yeah. Mike Huckabee went there and had a big protest. And the Oath Keepers went there to do that. And I had a huge problem with that, and not because somebody wants to, have personal beliefs, but when you work for the government, you're not allowed to embed your personal beliefs, which is one of our problems. In this country, is we have all these people bringing in their religious beliefs and liberty and constitutional protections are not about that. So when you are denying somebody as a government official their constitutionally protected right, and then you have groups standing there protecting them that are supposed to be against government oppression and against government unconstitutional behavior, it's a complete shift from what their charter was. So I had a huge problem with that, and I addressed it to the board and to one of the board members, and they said, well, basically, his answer was I got outvoted, and that was a lot of the beginning of what they were doing when they started changing. They started being an arm of a faction of the government, helping the government do things that, number one, it doesn't need help with. And number two, when you're violating constitutional protections, I have issue with that. And so that was the reason why I left them. There's a number of examples of that.
You mentioned that it has a formal board also.
Oh, absolutely.
So why people keep defining them in the media as a loose organization and all that? A board means there's a formal entity.
It is a formal entity, without a doubt, and the board member I was speaking to at the time is presently a deputy sheriff in the state of Montana, for example. They are a formal entity and have been. I don't know. I guess it's because of lack of diligence. The media is an issue. One of the reasons why I write and I'm a journalist is because the media drives me crazy and has for a very, very long time. They create narratives. A great example is the war against the war of Iraq. Every media outlet was on board for the war. I mean, everybody. MSNBC threw Phil Donahue off the air because he was anti-war, if people recall. And everybody fell and followed hook, line, and sinker the lies of Colin Powell's presentation to the United Nations, for example, and the reasons that George Bush gave. And that was probably the next time in my life that I decided to go back into journalism, because I just didn't get it. I didn't get the love fest. The media is supposed to be about accountability. That is the job, to make the government accountable for what it says, right, wrong, or indifferent. It can talk about it and say this is what they did, and they said they were going to do that, but they're supposed to keep an eye on it. That's the purpose of the media, and they don't do that today. They keep us nice and divided, as you mentioned. We are, and the media makes a lot of money off of us being divided. We stay divided. It's very, very disturbing.
So, and tell me a little bit more about this organization. I didn't know they have a board, because I keep reading in media they're a loose organization. It looks like a bunch of people who have no connection with each other, but they have a board. And do they do elections also?
Yeah, they do. I haven't, of course, been involved with them for a while, but yeah, they do. They ask their members to vote. They have lifetime memberships and yearly memberships. I think when I first joined, I believe I did a 3-year at the time. So I was a member officially in 2017, even though I was already, screaming at them for a number of reasons. But they do have, they are structured, and I don't know, I've never got into the, like the articles of incorporation or anything like that. I mean, again, I was there. I believed in the charter. Again, I know I shared with you an article I wrote about the hate mongering that was going on by the 3%ers specifically when they were doing, I even listed all the places they were saying that they were going to.
Yeah, I want to go there, but let's hear a little bit more about this group. So is the people who are saying that they have this olive drab shirt, helmet, and patches, do they have a prescribed uniform?
No, they don't. They do have, what do you call it? Merchandise that you can have. I mean, and when you join, for example, you get stickers. Like I used to, what I call my activist computer that has a whole bunch of stickers on it for things that I believed in at the time, has an Oath Keeper sticker on it at the time back then. And they do have merchandising and stuff like that. But they'll do calls of action. For example, they respond to disaster relief. It's one of the areas that I still worked with them at was during Harvey, Irma, and Maria, the three-headed monster that we had in the fall of 2017. I was involved in that for a very long time in a lot of different significant ways. And they were on the ground, and I had a connection, and they respond to them a lot. Most of the time, what they do is they provide protection for teams and private property against looters and things like that. Now, I think that their priorities are a little skewed when it comes to that. But when we were at Ferguson, they protected private property, and I was totally on board with the way they did it at Ferguson. And Ferguson is another complicated thing, because after Ferguson, one of their wonderful members out of Missouri wanted to do a march in Ferguson and supporting the constitutional protections of people' right to bear arms, and he wanted to focus on the Black community. And he arranged it, and of course, constitutional protections do not have a color. The Constitution doesn't have a color, thankfully, and at least not anymore. And the board and the Oath Keepers, bunch of members decided to treat the gentleman who was putting that together really badly and not support the march. And that's another reason why I was like, I'm done with you guys. You cannot do that. They basically, and so it turned out that all the racist sides of them came out. That was kind of the beginning of me noticing that and the changes that were happening, unfortunately.
So let's talk about a little bit of belief system. Are they particularly religious people?
Well, they say they are. are. I mean, certainly, the example I gave of the clerk, that was done by Mike Huckabee, and, Stuart Rhodes has been buddying up with a whole bunch of different figures that are connected to Christianity, certainly. At least they say they are. I mean, we all religions have people in it that are behaving badly, and this isn't a good example of that.
So prayer and the Bible and those things are quoted in their circles, or once in a while?
I've never been to a situation where prayer was done. Well, no, actually, I take that back. No, actually, I have. Just thinking about it, yes, they do prayer. Actually, I have a video of it. They did one when they were getting ready to get on a private jet that my organization supplied them and other medical people to go over to Puerto Rico during Maria at the very, very beginning of the Maria relief effort. I have a video of them praying before they got on the plane, et cetera. So yeah, they do that. I've never been personally involved in it or what they say or if it happens all the time. My last involvement in any way with the Oath Keepers was standing against them in front of a mosque in Atlanta.
Yes, so we'll come to that in a detail. They are headquartered in Nevada. So did you visit them over there?
No, and I'm not aware that. I mean, it must be new that they're in Nevada. Stuart Rhodes last time. I mean, I interviewed Stuart Rhodes as part of an online training center years ago, which is how I met him. And this is probably 2014, 2013, something like that. He actually wanted me to run the Georgia division. I lived in Georgia for many years, and he actually asked me if I would run the Georgia chapter of the Oath Keepers because it was very fractured at the time. But I interviewed him, and he was in Montana. But I've never really gotten behind to actually where headquarters is or what it's like, as far as I have an organization that's based out of Delaware, but I've never lived in Delaware at all.
Yes, of course. Delaware is notorious for these things.
Exactly.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with a former oath keeper who's keeping the real oath, but not the organization, Bobby Rodrigo, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adam. You remember me? I appeared in so many episodes that Sound Vision has put on the market. No matter what. Hey, what's happening? Hey, oh, sorry. Lockdown is what it is. Well, continuing here. In this lockdown, Sound Vision never stops thinking about you, the viewer. We'll have to get back into production again, online and inline. Everybody in their own space, even me. Although I'm stuck with Lanisa.
Salam! Salam! Salam!
I know, you were shocked too. Well, let me continue. This is what I was going to say. Salam! 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 Cut! Finally, I get my own screen time again. Thank God. And so we invested in new equipment to bring you even better production with new songs and new singers and animations. Well, here are a few clips. And Sound Vision has brought all this into your home, making Islamic values and teachings easy. And if you know me, Adam, a multi-talented actor, well, sometimes I'm an actor and the reporter and the... Oh, that's enough. Let's move on to the next section. Well, you can watch these new episodes on our new app at www.adamsworldapp.com. We have previews happening every day on Muslim Network TV. Sound vision has been serving generations, moving and changing with the times. We are all faithfully connected. That is a huge blessing. Your donation helps keep these programs available now and into the future. We take this job of helping tomorrow's Muslims today seriously, and you should too. Today, we need your help. Children absorb and learn from everything they encounter. Make that wholesome, positive, grounded in our faith. Together, we can accomplish our goal of raising better Muslims, better neighbors, and better citizens. Please donate generously.
It's an investment in our future.
To finish, let me tell you, there are new scripts of my new mission. And it is something that I enjoy talking about. My new mission is space. Houston,
We do not have a problem. Salam. See you soon.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with Bobby Rodrigo, who is a former oath keeper. These conspiracy theories are attributed to these people, QAnon and all that. Was that the case at that time also, or what was the situation when you were with them?
No, QAnon, I think, I've been so buried in relief work that sometimes I don't pay attention as closely as I would if I wasn't. But QAnon is more of a new thing as far as my understanding of them. And I never heard of them around the Oath Keepers, but I did, there's been a lot of interactions. I of course was on their mailing list. I think I still am, but I was on their mailing list. And there would be, a member, any member can send an email, and a member of the state of Georgia chapter, which of course I was a member of specifically, would send out an email, and I would get into an engagement with him because the information wasn't accurate. A lot of the conspiracy type stuff that goes on, it's based upon facts that aren't accurate, and it's on the internet, you got to believe it type of thing. It's kind of it's really a problem in our society in all levels. And people go right down the rabbit hole. And of course, my fellow veterans, are complicated people because of the lives that they've had to live when they were active duty, and however they come out of that and what they've seen, it's one of the areas that I work with veterans all the time, of course, being one, and help in any way. But it's complicated. It's a complicated part of society. And I'll get into discussions with people that are totally based upon partisanship, alleged terrorism, which is a word that we way overuse in our society, in my opinion, in order to create a government force situation and hate and all those things. But you have a lot going on anyway. So I can see the natural progression of a connection between the two, but I don't know if there is one. I have completely disassociated myself with any of these organizations unless I'm calling them out. I get to the point where I just get so annoyed or I might be somebody I know and respect. Like the gentleman who I called who was a member of the board. I have a tremendous respect for him. I've never seen him behave badly. I've never known him to have a discussion that was inflammatory. He has his positions from the standpoint of his assessment of constitutional behavior, and he's an active duty deputy sheriff. So, I watch him closely because of that, particularly with all the police interactions that are going on that we're seeing all the time. These police interactions that we see have been going on forever. They're just cameras everywhere, starting with Rodney King and moving forward. So I watch those conversations, just to understand the gentleman, and I have a extensive relationship with members of law enforcement and advocacy, particularly in the cannabis prohibition world, and so I pay attention to their behaviors. And I've never seen him.
When you question, Bobby, when you question the conversation which was coming from that board member of Oath Keeper. There were other people probably listening to that conversation. Did anybody speak up with you? What I'm trying to understand is when a difference of opinion comes into being, how it gets resolved in that organization.
No, no one's ever chimed in. My information is essentially third hand in regards of other people's positions or what the board votes are. I've never confronted Stewart about it. I really consider it a waste of time, just on the nature of his behavior and what he says publicly and what I've seen him do. I don't really want to. It's just, to me, it's a waste of time. Now, if I was with him physically, I would. And I know Stewart. It's not a virtual relationship. I know him. We've done stuff together, particularly the only stuff that we've ever done together is disaster relief. I've never seen him at an event, or I've never been part of an event, both either pro or against him, when he's been there. But I've listened to him, to me, unless I'm sitting in a room with him, I don't really want to talk to him on the phone or anything. He'd probably hang up anyway, because I really would get on him about some of the things that he's done and some of the positions that he's had, even prior to any of this. I mean, some of the stuff that you read earlier at the beginning of the show, I didn't know. I wasn't, I didn't know that the Virginia prosecutor was alleging those things. I haven't read that. I haven't read those because, again, I'm really busy doing the relief work that I'm doing.
You mentioned that, Oath Keepers were involved in helping people in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. So what is the ethnic composition? People who went over there to help has that heritage, or everybody went there?
No, they actually, from a heritage standpoint, that they're pretty neutral. It's a very wide organization from the standpoint of ethnicity. My involvement, I am part Puerto Rican. My involvement is because I'm in relief work all the time. They actually were pretty useless when they went over there. The people that I sent them over there with were not very happy with their behavior. And mind you, it was about laziness, not about bad behavior. It wasn't about them doing anything wrong. But their whole premise was protecting people that didn't need to be protected, because the looting rhetoric is also something that's way overblown in our society. If they have one film of looting, then all of a sudden everybody's looting. And Puerto Rico did not have that problem. And I don't think there's anybody on the planet that knows more about what happened in Puerto Rico than me, to be honest with you. And I say that humbly, but I was there. I know what went on, and I was part of one of the biggest relief efforts in the history of this country.
So you're saying that it is a multi-ethnic group?
Well, they certainly. I mean, I'm not white, for example, and neither is the deputy sheriff that I was talking to, who's in Montana. He's black, but most of the people that I've dealt with around the Oath Keepers have been white. That doesn't mean they don't look for it or whatever, but most of the people that I've been around with and know in Oath Keepers is white. And the way I've met most of them is in disaster relief. Even, different chapters and different situations. Because I've been doing disaster relief a long time, and if people want to help, I don't care who you are if you want to help in those situations. But I've never really seen anybody. But
how would you describe? How would you think about the current description of them as a white supremacist? Because
I think that they have.
telling
I think that they have. I think that they have ethnic hatred in their rhetoric. I think that they have racist rhetoric in their hatred, and they certainly have political hatred in their rhetoric, without question. I guess that's the way I was. White supremacy is. I don't like alleging anything unless I know it for sure, and then I'm going to say I know it and I'm a witness. I've never seen them do anything that necessarily promotes it, I guess. I don't really know how to answer that. All I know is that their rhetoric, the way that they have attacked Muslims and mosques, the way that they have attacked the left politically, literally in every post that they do, and all their emails. I mean, I get this stuff, and it's directly on their website. They have totally. And they're not even anti-government. They're pro whatever government they think is right, and the way that they've been behaving is that they have been the whole premise behind their behavior with Donald Trump is supporting Donald Trump, which is government. So the statement that they're anti-government is really not accurate in any way anymore. It might have been more accurate when I was a member per se, but it's just not accurate.
So let's talk about the anti-Muslim thing. Describe to us the event in which you went to, in defense of different mosques in Georgia, and who else among the Oath Keepers worked with you at that time?
So they put out, the Oath Keepers and 3%ers put out a call to action to go and march against mosques. And I was blown away when I seen it. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I had to do some soul searching about the whole thing, because that's, again, Sharia, the paranoia about Sharia law and the misunderstanding about the Muslim religion, period, anyway. I mean, that's the first thing I think of when I think of Islam is I think of Muhammad Ali. And if everybody would start there, it would be a lot different perception, I think, in my mind. Anyway, so it was amazing to me that they were getting ready to attack private property, bottom line. Now, no one said they were going to do any violence or anything, but what was the point? They had all of these, that was certainly a white thing, without a doubt, and an alleged Christian thing. And they had all these people that were going after the mosque and blocking them and things like that. And I'm like, that's not right. We're supposed to be the opposite of that. We're supposed to protect private property from people who are trying to do it harm, whether it's the government or somebody else. So and of course there were people who were protesting, not protesting, there were people that were standing in front of the mosque, and it was very peaceful from that side, certainly. And I decided that it was my duty to stand up against the people who I used to belong to and let them know that this is unacceptable behavior. I had a lot of conversations that day. And so I went to the mosque in Atlanta, and I wrote an article about it, about what was going on. And I identified all the places that they put out that they were supposed to attack, or whatever, attack is probably the wrong word, but that they were going to do this protest again. And again, protest, everybody can protest all they want. I got no issues with people protesting, obviously. Peaceful, fine. I'm all about do no harm. If you're not doing any harm, but just the idea of going against an entire culture the way they did, with absolutely no basis of it. And there's never a basis to go against it. I mean, there's literally no basis. Freedom isn't about that. And constitutional protection is not about that. I had to go do something about it, and I was happy that I did. I've always been very happy that I did. I went down. We had. I tell my friends that when the Nazis come to town, I always go say hello, and I bring my camera, and so I've done that as well. If there's a protest which is specifically about white supremacy or any subject, I'll go and stand there and film it and talk to them and do no harm, and but I'll make sure that I'll try and make sure and protect the innocent and as much as people who can't defend themselves if it's necessary. Luckily, that's never happened, but there's a lot. Everything is a circumstance, but you cannot.
When this mosque incidents took place and you took a defensive role, defensive in the sense of protecting the mosque and standing with the people who are being victimized there, were you able to communicate with those people who are doing that? And what was their thought when you told them why this is not protecting the Constitution, you're standing on the opposite of the Constitution at that time? What did they say?
Well, they argued. They had a different stand. They came there inflamed, and it was probably 2 hours, so there wasn't really a lot of time. I did try and follow up with a few conversations, but of course, life gets in the way when it comes to those things. I was just really glad that I was there, but I did have I was literally right in their face. I was, I'm unfortunately, some of my family would hate it. I'm a frontline guy in all circumstances, and I was standing there right in their face and saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And please explain to me how this meets your charter. And that goes for 3%ers. There was more 3%ers there, but that goes for anyone that's doing that. Says, how is your behavior right now? Why are you attacking this culture? What is your basis? Well, they were part of this, and no, they weren't. These people were not part of anything. They're here. They're living their lives just like anybody else. So how do you sit there and justify your attack on anyone? And nobody really has a really good answer. They just they just figure I'm capitulating to some kind of behavior that they're fighting, and that's a lot of what happens in these circumstances, of course.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with Bobby Rodrigo, who is a former oath keeper. We'll be right back after these messages.
My wife, she's a professor at the University of Cincinnati, who's Catholic, and by her watching and listening to our 3-year-old son watch Adam's World, she ended up taking Kalima Shahada. She embraced Islam because she learned so much about Islam and the other prophets. It really affected our life in a great way, and because of Sound Vision and Adam's World, we're Muslims.
I took my Shahada 15 years ago, and I actually am from a rural part of Ohio. And so I found the catalog for Sound Vision, and I ordered the tapes and the CDs and the books, and I used those, and especially for my little daughter, that's how we basically learned our Islam, and Islam entered our hearts through the wonderful works of Sound Vision.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, brother. I just want you to know that I love the Sound Vision website, that a lot of times when I'm looking for information, especially as it relates to homelessness, domestic violence, and women issues, I go to that website, and then I see what you've written, and then I copy and paste it, and spread the word, because the wisdom is there, so I can't do any better than what Sound Vision has already done.
Sound Vision is our survival guide. It is the organization that provides skills for Muslims how to survive and thrive in this community here in the U.S.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Anam, I'm in 11th grade, and I grew up with Adam's World, and what it taught me was unity, respect, and love for the Muslim Ummah.
Adam's World is the greatest show ever made. Take me to the Kaaba, man. I love that puppet.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Bobby Rodrigo. Bobby, the transformation. I mean, you went from this side, being with them, realizing, giving your opinion, and moving away from their side. But on the other side, I saw, the lady who got killed by the officer in the Capitol Hill, Miss Babbitt. She was an Obama voter, and until recently defended Obama and what he did. 35-year-old Air Force veteran, and she died trying to enter a protected area when she got, when officer shot her. So how this transformation takes place? So do you have any insight? I mean, here's the person. I mean, if she was a racist, she would not be in supporter of Obama. I mean, that's my evidence, and still she's defending her. But then suddenly she is just completely transformed into another mission.
Yeah, I don't think it's about racism that's going on at that particular time. And again, I don't know. I never met this young lady, of course, and so anything that we say, we have to say in that context. But for me, the thing that they're doing more than anything else, I mean, I listened to what the president said to the crowd. My friend and colleague Ford Fisher from News to Share was there filming it, and he also was in Charlottesville, for example. It's his footage at the end of the movie Black Klansman that you see as far as what happened in Charlottesville. So I listened to it and I didn't like it, and it was all about the politics. The people who stormed the Capitol wasn't. I mean, certainly they could have. Some of them, all of them, could have been racist. But to me, it is the rhetoric about the political rhetoric that's going on. When you listen, when you look at the things that all these groups are saying, and independent people in Canaan, it's all about the libtards and all about how they're stealing the country, and I think it's more of that hatred that's being promoted than anything else. Now, everything else goes along with it. Of course, we've had all the Black Lives Matter protests that have happened recently, and this follows other protests that have happened over the years. And of course, so that so it feeds on that as well. The anti-police stand up, the thin blue line, all those things that are thrown at it. These people are anti-police. These people want open borders. If the Democrats wanted open borders, I'd be a Democrat, to be honest with you, because I believe in open borders. So all of that is an absurdity that is being pushed down people's throat, and they're going for it. So when I look at what happened at the Capitol, I look at it more of political hatred than I do any other kind. And that seems to be the simplest that is being developed, because we hear it all the time. Elected officials do it. You mentioned Rubio. So we hear it all the time about this side is bad, that side is bad, and what they're doing, and it's more than racism for sure. And that's the thing that's getting people moving. And then of course there's Black people, Muslims, Spanish people shouldn't vote Democrat because they're not being treated well. And when you analyze that stuff, that's not an unreasonable position, but the way it's being put out is unreasonable. And they're attacking people left and right. Look at the things that they've said about the individual elected officials. It's crazy.
So do you think, so let's talk about the coverage, coverage of January 6th. You must, just like all of us, you probably are keeping up with what is going on. What do you think? What was how media portrayed it? What got highlighted? What remained hidden? What is still need to be discussed?
Well, to be candid with you, I spend very little time paying attention to mainstream media anymore. They have the Washington Post, for example, did an article about us independent journalists in 2018 that came out, and we were furious. All independent journalists, with Jeremy Scahill was furious, Glenn Greenwell, Matt Taibbi, who I've worked with. All of us independent, because they literally attacked organizations that I write for, saying that we were working for Putin because we were criticizing Hillary Clinton, which is ludicrous. When you're holding elected officials. So I don't spend much time with them. I can tell you that I have watched all of the raw footage from News to Share, because I trust Ford, and he doesn't have anything. He does raw footage. He goes out there and he films. He doesn't say anything rarely. He just says, this is what's happening. This is where I am. And of course, I have read. I really don't spend any time watching them, but I have read a lot of the things that have come out. And as more things come out, the first thing I say is, well, let me backtrack. So one of the things that we do in our society, media-wise, in my opinion, is we rush to tell information. We have so many sources for news that everybody wants to be first. The other thing that happens, which to me is irresponsible, is media will rely on other media to write a story. So if you just browse through your Facebook page, for example, you'll see, The Hill will say, well, an hour ago, the New York Times reported, and the Washington Post will say an hour ago, the Wall Street Journal reported. Nobody's doing the work themselves. They're going by what somebody else said. And that is a big fundamental shift in how journalists approach their job for whatever reason. I remember thinking when back in just Puerto Rico, for example, when I was flying over to Puerto Rico in a private jet, bringing relief over, and I took ABC News of Miami with me because ABC News wouldn't pay for their people to go over there on their own. So we took them so they could actually cover what was really happening. We were transporting medical supplies. So I have issues with the way the media is behaving at the moment. And then as we move along, like what they report on January 6th, and then all of a sudden in January 10th, they have all this extra footage, all this extra information, because everybody is rushing to, they did this, they did that, they did this, and look at this picture without even understanding it. And then you have the conspiracy side of it. Oh, that person was a Black Lives Matter person, so they're infiltrating, which happens when they do it the other way. Instead of identifying and making the information accurate, our media tends to run like crazy to be first. So I stay away, to be honest with you. Now, to answer your direct question, again, I think it was all about political hatred, and I think that the media is jumping on board like they always do. They're going to make money. The media that is considered left is going to make a lot of money with the people who watch the media that are considered left and get comforted by it by spouting all this hate instead of just reporting and letting us make up our own minds. That's our biggest problem, in my view, is that we do not have people just showing us what happened and telling us the story and letting us make up our own minds. They're telling us how to think, and I hate it.
So which media how do you gather your information? You cannot be in all places to watch yourself.
No. Well, again,
unless you have figured out the technology of cloning yourself.
Yeah, well, that would be nice. I actually just in relief work, that would be great. I go through it. I vet it. I'm patient. I don't get on board. I don't have a lot of discussions. I just vet it. And if I'm not engaged in something like I am right now, where I can spend more time in it, then I get involved and I write. And I have no problem calling the local police department of, I wrote a story particularly, but if you remember the 3 Muslim students that were murdered in Chapel Hill. Yeah. And I believe I was the second story nationally about that, because I got up in the middle of the night and I called the police station and I got them to send me a copy of their press release, and I made sure the information was accurate about the gentleman who was and then I published it. And there's not a lot of that going on. Everybody, well, I'll just go with what the last one said and I'll add stuff to it. So I vet stuff. I read a lot of stuff. There's people I respect immensely that I trust. Matt Taibbi, I mentioned him. Matt Taibbi, Jeremy Scahill, I trust probably more than anybody. The Radley Balco. If I want to know about police behavior in the country, I'll follow Radley. And I'm not trying to promote people, but these are the people that I'll lean on a little bit for accurate information. And then there's independent journalism that is done without an agenda. And just trying to be. Mid-Press News is a great. Manar Mahavish, who's a friend, and who I've supported since I've met her. I met her 2013, I think, in Los Angeles at an event that I helped run. Her honesty on those issues is very important, in my opinion. So I work my way through it and then use my experience kind of balancing that out. And if I need to get involved, I do. Walking the halls of Congress is a big experience. I've walked the halls of Congress and I walked away. they waste my time.
So how do you define now? I will ask you 2-3 questions, and I have only a couple of minutes. So give a very short answer. How do you describe yourself now politically?
I'm not affiliated. I hate everybody. As far as the part, there's not a party on the planet that I will support. I don't support political parties. I'm a liberty person. I'm about doing no harm. I'm about community empowerment. I believe that we solve our problems by the bottom up, not from the top down.
So do you vote?
When there's somebody worth voting for. I actually work on campaigns even more than I vote. I've worked on 10, 15 campaigns in various roles in the last 10 years.
Do you expect more violence because of whatever is happening?
I expect more violence for a number of reasons. My answer is yes, I do. And with the political hatred that's being promoted, and with the behavior of government repression, and with the expansion now of, we're going to see more laws that are written that are going to be about government force as a result of the rhetoric that's going on. There's a lot of irresponsible behavior going on in our government. And it's the same thing that happened with the Patriot Act, and the same thing that happened with the indefinite detention. They took advantage of a situation and they ran with it. And we went down that road. And I think there's going to be more violence as a result.
So that organization which you mentioned worked against the indefinite detention, are they still active? What are they trying to do now? Because the Supreme Court went in that direction. So it means unless the law is changed, nothing could be achieved. And it is still, you believe, is the current law. So what is that organization doing right now?
Yeah, they are still involved. You got to be able to pay the bills. So it's not as strong on a daily basis as it was, but it absolutely is still involved. I'm no longer on the board or the event coordinator, but we passed legislation throughout the country actually against the indefinite detention resolutions. I actually testified in front of the Common Council in the state of New York and Albany, for example, and we wrote that legislation and it passed unanimously, actually. A number of different places that we've done that at the county level and the city level, essentially nullifying we asked the government to not support the federal government's power to do that. Like if they come and ask you to help to behave this way, that you won't, and they passed it. So I would doubt very much, knowing Daniel Johnson the way I do and the wonderful human being that he is, I doubt very much that organization will ever disappear. He's working on other things full time right now, but Panda will remain an active role as well. And again, anybody who reads that law will understand what we're talking about. They can arrest you.
The last thing I want to ask you, for no time is left though. So you have a coffee party. Are you in competition with the Tea Party?
No, the Coffee Party, and I'm no longer with them anymore, but the Coffee Party is not against the Tea Party. The Coffee Party was about civil engagement, sitting down and having a cup of coffee with your neighbor and your family to talk about civil engagement. And it's about civility, unity, integrity. I was with them a very long time, and it was founded on corporate personhood.
Well, thank you so much, Bobby Rodrigo. It was a pleasure talking to you, helping people understand better. I believe, as you do, the people need to hear each other, and whether they agree or not is a different thing. And media shutting down any conversation when they decided who is the enemy actually is the harmful thing in our society. I hope there will be other friends of yours who will be willing to speak and talk on these things. So thank you so much, Bobby Rodrigo. And thank you, Dr. Abdul Wahid and Sherdil Khan for producing today's show. And thank you for watching. On Muslim Network, you get to hear things which normally not easily available. We are always there 24/7. You can stay tuned and watch other programs. We are there on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, Apple TV. You can download our app of Muslim Network TV or our own website. Peace. Salam.